I'm CK. Tonight we've got another module in the educational series from Erica Synths and MKI. This is the snare. I think I've done 8 or 9 of their other edu modules. You can see them on my channel. So we can expect an excellent build guide with wonderful tutorial information about how to create electronic circuits for music. Well worth just going to their website and reading that, even if you don't buy the module. And I also expect to see a lot of stand-up resistors, which I am not a big fan of, but MKI apparently loves them. So we'll do that, and again, I apologize a little bit for having a little bit of a slur tonight, but I'm still getting used to these new teeth, so just put up with it. The music won't sound slurred, and I hope you enjoy the video. The box, EDU Snare drum from Erica Synths. I picked this up from Thonk as I acquire many of my modules from them. Let's see what's in the box. Let's see if we can figure out how to get it open. Bag of parts, bag of parts. Here's the power cord, of course. See, they did it again. They're using this power cord that's got a very faint dash of red on it instead of course, the one time I need a power cord, I don't have one. What the heck? Instead of a good solid line like that. This is hard to see if I'm poking around in the back of a rack, and I would love for them to move to that darker tint. We'll get the box ready for recycling. Now let's look in here. This is a wider front panel than I expected. I did not expect to see. I thought this would be 2 or 4 U narrower than this. This is very wide. Huh. Let's see what we got. Got tune up your snare drum, attack, decay. I assume these are pots. Well, I'm not, oh yes I am. These are pots. We'll look on the board just to be sure. Tune CV, I assume that controls how high or low you want the CV value to react. And snappy for, that's a subset of attack. He'll probably talk about it more in the build guide. Then accent, tune CV, snappy CV, trigger, and output. So the front panel is pretty straightforward, very easy to understand. The board is high quality. This is surface mount quality board. And let's see, snare drum version 2.0, April 2024. So that's only, this is only like 2 months old at the time of recording this. Schematics by Moritz Klein, PCB by Ingus Petrus, and Erica Synths. And yeah, we've got pot, jack. Let's look on the other side. Power connector goes here. It looks like all the values of the resistors and capacitors and diodes are all listed on the board. We've got a bunch of caps, bunch of resistors, some film caps. One transistor here, one transistor, oh, that, I think that's a voltage regulator. Actually, no, that's, well, we'll look at the build guide or when we get out of the parts bin. Then there's 1, 2, 3 TL072 op amps. So it looks pretty straightforward, and this board is actually not as densely populated or as dense as many of the MKI EDU series, which is nice. Again, if somebody's just starting out using this to learn, having a little more space on the board is a-okay. You grab the parts bin, parts tray, whatever you want to call it. Let's look at the main componentry. Nothing left in the bag. resistors. There's a decoupling cap of 104. Resistors, diodes. I'm putting the resistors in my hand because we're going to be doing those first, as is typical. Is that no? That's a resistor. Huh, okay. Bunch of resistors, golly. Put those all over at this end of the bin so I can keep track of them. Then again, diodes. Just 2 electrolytic caps, bunch of 104 decoupling caps, and some 222s and 474s. That's interesting. And then we've got, for the BC548, it might come as a BC547, so this happens periodically with them. I'm not sure why. I guess they just depends on what stock they get. So we've got 547s here, looks like, and there's a 558. And here's a 547. There are more of these than I thought there were. Looking at the circuit board, I must have missed some. 547. And 547. Etc., etc. And then here's our 3 op amps, and they look like they are, as I would expect, genuine Texas Instrument parts, which is always nice. So that's the stuff. Oh, over here we've got, oh, that's nice. Look at that. I get excited by some things. I get excited by a knob that's got a good metal insert and a big old brass set screw. That's really nice. That's a great knob. The other ones are all the other ones are the blue. Let me pull one out so you can see what I'm talking about. Let me pull one out. Come on, open up, bag. The blue pots that don't take knobs, they're integral. Oh, these are A taper. 100K. 100K. That's not 100K. What is that? 500? And that's a B taper on this one. That's 500 ohm. What does that go to? What does that go to? He asks quizzically. Unless I'm... And that's 5K? Wait. Oh, okay. 502, so that's 5K. And that's the attack pot. I was miscalculating my numbers. I left the 0 off. And that's it. Nice little kit, except for the pile of resistors. It looks like it's pretty straightforward and going to be pretty quick to put together. So I'll get the soldering iron heated up and we'll start doing that. I went to their website, and here's the build guide and user manual. Excuse me. Build guide and user manual, which, as I said, is extremely comprehensive and allows you to breadboard the circuit out as much as you want before you do an assembly and learn how things work. And again, even if you don't buy the module, go to their website and grab the guide if you want to learn about electronics for Eurorack or any other music creators. I'm going to see where we are on the actual build guide, even though there shouldn't be much. I always just look through and see if we've got anything in particular that they point out in caution. Okay, we are, because these are stand-up resistors on this board. We're actually going to do, as he recommends, we're going to do the capacitors. Why is this spark gap generator out of its location? What are you doing in the middle of the table, buddy? Go back to where you're supposed to be. Instead of doing the resistors first, as we typically do because they lie the flattest, he recommends, and I certainly concur, that we'll do the small caps and the IC sockets first, and then we'll dive in. I wonder if he suggests doing the transistors first too. No, but we'll do the diodes too. So let's start with diodes, because that'll give us a good sense for the board. These are our 5148s that you'll find in most everything. Get this out of the way. Orange body, black stripe on one end. The black stripe matches up with the white line here on the circuit board, so you can get the polarity right. There are two other diodes over here, the 5819s, the ones that are ensuring that the power is not reversed coming off the power connector, but we'll get to those. Why did you get all wacky in there? That was my fault. Why did I do that? Pull that through a little tighter. Okay, so that one's in place, and we'll solder it to see how the board takes solder. But again, these are very high quality boards that Erica Synths uses for this. Oh yeah, takes solder very well. And because they're through-hole plated, we'll take a look at the other side and see how much it filled up the hole, and it did a great job of that. So I will put the rest of the diodes on in fast motion, because there's nothing much more to say about them. Now we'll do the two power protection diodes, much bigger. They keep the board from blowing up if you happen to plug the power cord in wrong, which you can do if it doesn't have a really visible stripe. Sorry. I just really dislike those ribbon cables with the faint red line. I think I'm going to get the two 10 ohm resistors and put those on there too. Now we're going to do all the chip sockets. There are three of them, 3 op-amp chips. Little notch will match the notch on the circuit board. And note that they go in different directions. So make sure you've got the notches going in the right way, because they're not all facing the same way. I'm going to take this little index card to support the chips while I flip the board over. And now I'll put one dab of solder on one leg on each socket. Now pick the board up, take a look, make sure everything's flat. And it is, so I'll do the rest of the legs. And there are all the sockets. Now we'll put all our ceramic caps on. Get them all out. Now we'll put the, I've got to sneeze, it's going to be cutting the sound. Sound is now back again after my sneeze. So I'm going to put all the 104s, the 1/10 of a microfarad, and generally when you see these and you've got ICs on the board, like these op amps, the 104s will generally be very close to the sockets because they are decoupling caps. They decouple some of the noise and irregularity in the power going to the chips, and they're very common. So whenever you see a bunch of 104 ceramic caps in your kit, just assume that many of them are going to go next to the sockets on the board. Not all of them, they may be placed other places too, but it's always a good first look is to look near the integrated circuits. Now we'll do all our film caps. I wonder why those came on separate strips. Now when you're working with stuff on paper tape like this, just cut it loose. Don't try and fight it out of the paper tape. You just bend pins and theoretically even pull something loose if you're not very careful. And there's all the film caps on board. Now we will dive in to the resistors. Let's see which one has the most. We'll do all the 1Ks first. Let's see what he says, if anything, on that. He says he's doing it. Stand-up resistors to save space. Well, you know, you went wider on this board than you needed to, so you don't need to have stand-up resistors on this one. I think you would have been just fine with lay-down resistors. And I just harp on this because it's just a little error potentiality as you are reaching around the back of a board and you're maybe working with power connector or working with a board next to it and you bend one of the resistors over. It's probably never going to happen, but I fret about things like that. So you bend the top lead over like that, find a place where it goes. These are 1Ks, so this one will go in here, and there's a circle around where you want to put the body and a very short white line pointing to where you put the other lead. So that's it for stand-up resistor commentary. And I've got a lot of resistors to do, so we will put playback in fast motion. I can't tell what the value, oh, I see. I'm sorry, I put that in the wrong place. This is all clustered very close together, and seeing where the values are can be challenging. Where is that? That's that one. That's R21 is there. And I'm sure if we just go to the parts placement diagram in the back, it can be a little easier to see that sometimes. So, as I was saying, since there's not a whole lot more to say about resistors, I will put the playback in fast motion and probably cut a bunch of this out, because it's time for you to be able to enjoy resistor time. That's resistor time for this kit, and let's see, I let my iPad go to sleep. And they're all vertical and they're all fine. The one thing I do want to point out, and this is true on all the EDU boards, I don't know about their other ones, always make sure, it can be a little confusing sometimes, there are also circled pads that have letters next to them for test points. Those are test points on the board, like C here, D here, and so on. Don't get them confused with the circle around the stand-up resistor body. The circle around the resistor is thinner. The test point circles are heavy white. So now next, we're going to put the transistors on. And we've got PNP and NPN. And again, we're not using the BC 548s, we've got BC 547s. So we will put them everywhere. And the other thing, the one thing their board layout software also does is it moves the center pin forward instead of back. So forward towards the flat side instead of back. Doesn't make any electrical difference, but if you're used to moving a transistor, the middle transistor pin back, as I usually do in my experience, you're going to have to just remember it goes the other way. So now we're looking for another, gosh, the printing is so hard to see sometimes on this, another 547. I'm sorry, the printing's not hard to see, it's just hard to discern what they're pointing at. Transistors are on, and now the electrolytics. There's just two of them. Power conditioning again. Square hole shows where the positive long lead goes. Also there's an indicator line here to show you where the shaded side or negative terminal of the electrolytic goes. And that is component assembly for this side of the board. I haven't put the ICs in yet because I'm not going to do that until I get all done, because I don't want to potentially damage them. So next are the pots and jacks, and I'll take a little break and then do that. I was wrong, there is one more part to put on the component side of the board, and I forgot because it was in this bag. It was in the knobs and jacks bag, and that's the power connector. So let's get the power connector out, and it is keyed, and we want to have the 12-volt line. What the heck is going on here? It is keyed, so I'll put the power connector in it. The way the key lines up, and then the red stripe or the red dots are there, and you can see on the board that it's got an indication of where negative 12 volts is available, which is the red stripe side. So we'll just put that on there like so. Set it down. Do one pin. Pick it up. Take a look. Not quite flat. So we'll heat it up again. And now we'll solder all. And we know it goes on that side because if the pots and jacks are on this side, then that's where the panel is going to be. So you couldn't get at the power connector, so it's got to go this way. Now I'll solder these connections. Now we'll go over to the pots and knobs, and we're going to put all the pots on first. Put the big tuning pot up here. This is a B1K. Oops, look at those pins, they're all snaggly. Let me get my needle nose and straighten them out. Wow, that really got scrunched by something in shipping. I gotta really bend that out. Now we'll put all the blue ones on. Gosh, where is... So that's 100K, goes over here. This is another 100K, and it goes over here. And this is a 254, which is 250K. Which leaves, by process of elimination, B502. So that's 5,000 ohms. And those got bent in a little bit too. Somebody sat on that bag in transit. Now we'll set the jacks in place. Now there are no LEDs or any other components, so we can lay the front panel on it. Get everything lined up. Lines up pretty good. There's good clearance around all the knobs, shafts, and the jacks. Use my little clamp to clamp it together for a little bit. And I'm going to do one leg of this potentiometer and one, just double checking that it's tight, one pin on this jack like so. Now I'll flip this back around, put the potentiometer nut on. My little 10mm socket, and then that one jack down here that I put Little dab of solder on one of its pins. Take my 8mm socket, snug that down. That'll hold everything and get rid of that clamp. And now I will solder all these panel connections. Of course, they're scattered amongst all this other electronic stuff, so just be careful when you do this. That's part of the reason why I don't put the integrated circuits in their sockets until I'm all done doing this kind of stuff. And there's all the components soldered. Now we'll put the op amps on board. Now we'll put the rest of the panel nuts on. We'll get our big tuner knob. Doesn't have a flat spot. That's okay. We'll make sure it's all the way counterclockwise. Line up the index line with the dot print, or with the lowest line on the tuning scale here. Snug it down. Make sure it still tunes. It does. Now snug it down more. Make sure all the knobs turn. They do. And that's it. There's the front. There's the side. The back. The other side. The top. And the bottom. Now let's put it in the rack and hear how it sounds. Let's fire it up. There's no LEDs, so we can't see if it's on, but we can see if it catches fire. Yep. Was already playing, the LFO was already running. That's looking pretty good. It's pulling 10 milliamps, which isn't much. On the plus 12, on the minus 12, it's pulling 11. Of course, nothing on the 5. So that's pretty low power. That's nice. Now, as you heard, it's already chunking a little bit, so that sounds pretty nice. Now let's tune it a little bit. That certainly sounds workable. Tune it where you want. Let's see what taking the attack all the way down does. Not much. Let me take the attack all the way up. There we go. It's got some punch up there. Put it there. Oh, that's nice too. I like it there. I like it there too. There's an interesting noise element there. Okay, now I'm going to take decay all the way out. Very sharp. Extend it. That sounds almost like a tom. Take decay back again. We can, of course, fine-tune it. Actually, that's attenuation on the CD input. Never mind. See what Snappy does. That's very snappy. And that's not so snappy. That's sloppy. Put it about there. I'm going to turn the LFO way up, see how fast it can handle. Okay, so that's way up. Let's see how that sounds when I play with some things. Wow, that's kind of interesting. You speed it way up, you can do interesting things with it. I'm going to speed it even further up. Okay, that's too fast. It doesn't react at all. Now let's do some modifications. Put another LFO into let's put an LFO into tune. You can hear that. If I slow it down, it's actually better. That's kind of neat. Let's put that in accent. Speed that up a little bit. Kind of interesting. Now let's put that in snappy. Yeah, again, that's got a good tom sound to it. Put that in tune. That's kind of neat. I'm going to do a triangle wave into the trigger to see if that does anything interesting, and it does not. Go back to where I was. Let's do one more cable and run accent at the same time. So as you can see, you can do quite a bit with this. That's pretty neat. So there you go. Obviously, by putting 3 LFOs in there, actually 2 LFOs in there, it gives me some interesting sounds, some different sounds that you wouldn't necessarily expect out of a snare. Obviously, it can be just plain old ordinary snare if you want. But feeding stuff into the accent and tune CV, I didn't get a good feel for the snappy CV. Can create some real interesting stuff, and again, turning it up real fast makes it a different instrument altogether. So another good EDU module from MKI and Erica Synths. Relatively straightforward to put together, as you saw, and I hope you enjoyed the video.